So hello everyone. You're new to the channel and welcome back. If you love me, I love you too. We are here to discuss the astrological breakdown of the full moon in Pisces. This is considered a lunar eclipse. It's partial because the orb is pretty wide. Eclipses happen when the sun or the moon is close to the nodes, right? When it gets relatively close to the nodes. So there's an 11-degree orb right now. So if you were to catch the moon during the peak, which is 9:04 p.m., you would be able to see a kind of red glow on the moon, right? With a lunar eclipse. So this energy is a preview of what the nodes moving into Pisces and Virgo is going to look like. This is the first eclipse within the sign of Pisces and Virgo that we've had for quite a while. Since the last time the nodes were in these signs, approximately 9 years ago, although it would have been flipped 18 years ago to get the nodes the same. Hey, Risa, how you doing? So, we're going to be going over some things, but I wanted to kind of flash you guys back to the new moon in Virgo that we just had, right? And I did a whole cosmic currency on this that you guys can find in the live tab here on the channel. So I'm not going to go into huge detail with it. You can always go back and rewatch it. But a lot of things were going on financially with people. There was strain on finances. There was definitely karmic patterns of self-abandonment when it comes to love and relationships that were being highlighted. Jupiter was more in square to Saturn than it was to Neptune, and that is starting to shift. Although Jupiter is still very much more in square to Saturn than it is Neptune. And it was kind of expanding on that mutual energy of Pisces and Gemini, the illusions that we have about the mirror in front of us, right? The disconnect that we have between our inner world and how that outer world that we experience with other people and situations is a reflection of that inner world, and being at conflict, right? In conflict with the outer, not recognizing the inner conflict that's manifesting it or creating it, right? We also had Mars at 28 degrees Gemini and quincunx to Pluto in Capricorn. It was fresh into Cap, literally by a day. And it was talking about how we could really pop out of that karma when we start to put ourselves in a kind of stoic state and take control of our life, right? Who needs to be fired from our experience, right? Capricorn is the CEO archetype, and we are the creator of our life experience, and some quote unquote employees do not hold up to their position. They do not meet the expectations of the label and fulfill their quote unquote job adequately, right? They're not effective or efficient or worthy of the position, right? And the different attachments that we have needing to kind of be dissolved and broken down in order to free ourselves of the weakest link, right? So that's where we kind of came from. And as we move into the evolution of that energy, right, with this full moon, things are really being put in our face to release. So there's 4 big aspect points that I'm going to touch on. The big one being the sun in Virgo opposing the moon, and Neptune conjunction going on in Pisces, and Mercury at 14 degrees Virgo in opposition to Saturn at 15 degrees Pisces. So I think it's non-coincidental, right, that we have these two separate bodies at different degrees that are also really closely opposed. In addition to that, the moon and Saturn and the sun are in square to Jupiter. Okay. They're in square to Jupiter. And Jupiter is sextiling on Chiron and trining onto Venus, who are in opposition. So there's a big conversation happening with these aspects. And I want to really touch on this idea that who we are and what we're doing and what we believe is acceptable or the perfect choice or the perfect actions actually going against how we feel and our connection to our highest self, right? This opposition between Virgo and Pisces and these planets that are in there. Saturn and Neptune are demanding spiritual order, okay? It's demanding spiritual order, and it's going to get deeper. This energy is going to get deeper as we get into the second aspect, where Neptune is at the top of the kite with this grand Earth trine we've got going on. There's our, and I had this conversation with Tanya, Tanya today, defining what the ego is, because the sun represents our life force energy, but it is also a big part of our ego and where our ego comes from. And ego can truly be replaced with the word control. It is what we do to try and control outcomes, right? That we believe that we can create what we want to create, but doing it forcefully, right? The sun has force. And so if we want a certain result, we will do things in order to force that result. The problem that the sun is facing with this opposition is that what we think, right, Mercury, what we think we're doing correctly is actually opposed to the spiritual order of things. And the mirror with Jupiter and Gemini is magnifying just how uncomfortable we feel internally, the conflict within the self, right? A great example, and you could take any example in your life and apply it as it resonates for you. But let's just say there's this belief that, you know, you have children, maybe you're the provider of your household, and you have a partner that doesn't really hold up to the standard or expectation that you had when you went into the relationship with them, right? Having children or sharing a home or sharing a business together or whatever. And you think that you're doing the right thing by putting everything on your shoulders, thinking that it'll work out, thinking that you're meant to stay for the kids, you're meant to make it work. It's better for the kids if you stay together, right? Maybe it's just a rough patch, but internally, you're frustrated and being met with resistance. You're stressed out, dealing with high anxiety, and it doesn't feel good to choose it, even if you believe or think that it's the right thing. Or if you're doing it for other reasons, right? Maybe you don't want to separate because it would be expensive to separate. You're doing it for all these reasons. And the spiritual order, if you are not with the correct partner, they're not in your highest good, right? It's not actually in alignment with your best version of self. Saturn is extremely restrictive, and Neptune can push people into escapism, different substances or maybe they're always constantly running or going out, or they're getting lost inside social media and technology, and they're not connecting with you in your reality anymore, right? They're disconnected. It's not actually getting better, right? There is no actual chance of it getting better because they're not in your highest good, right? So Jupiter being in square to these things with the sextile to Chiron and the trine to Venus is really asking you to take a look at what it is in them that you don't like and how it reflects your spiritual journey and the obstacles that you are up against with yourself and what you need to overcome. Like, let's just say, continuing with the example that your partner is lazy or they don't put in enough effort, right? And you're doing more than you could, should, would be doing to make up for the lack of effort, right? You're picking up all the slack. The reality, if you were to, describe your partner as lazy or unmotivated or unwilling to make an effort, the divine mirror of Jupiter and Gemini is asking you how you are being spiritually lazy and not putting in the effort to better yourself, right? Not putting in that effort and putting it all on yourself to control, as opposed to surrendering it to spirit, right? And trusting that if you're getting met with resistance, it's probably not in alignment to do it the way you're doing it. Even if it were in alignment a different way, it's not in alignment the way you're choosing to do it. So this square and the aspects that it's holding to Chiron and Venus, Chiron is asking you where you're wounded, where you're competing, right? Where are you competing? Because Aries is competitive. So who are you competing with? What idea or person from your past or somewhere else in your present are you competing with to prove that you are just as good as, or if not better than someone else? Who are you competing with? Are you trying to be better off than another person to make them feel less than? Are you trying to be better than, your parents, and you're competing with your parents and not wanting to, go down the same road they went down? And so you're sticking it out because you're better than them, and not accepting that maybe you're healing the same things that they are, and it's manifesting in a different way for you. Maybe you're manifesting understanding so that you can release judgment of your parents and go down the route of forgiveness and release, right? Who are you competing with that has hurt you or wounded you as perceived by you in some way? How can you embrace Venus in Libra? How can you embrace the beauty of you with partners that are equally beautiful, right? This is what Jupiter is asking you to look at. What is the beauty of you when you act in alignment with love, when you act in alignment with stability, when you act in alignment with gratitude for who and what is in your world? What does that create for you? Venus, a sign of love and gratitude and the beauty of life, in Libra, which is balance and harmony, right? Justice and its highest vibration. How have you abandoned, right? Because we're flashing back to that new moon in Virgo energy. How have you abandoned the positive reflection in order to see the wounds that you didn't see before, in order to heal those wounds that you hadn't healed before, that rejected the balance, right? Or rejected the beauty, or rejected the gratitude for beautiful people, that you couldn't appreciate them or reciprocate to them, that you sabotaged yourself, right? This moon is really kind of asking you to take a look at what you deserve now that you've gone through or are presently going through a very karmic, restrictive, experience that you truly do want to get out of and may feel trapped in. Okay. The grand earth trine that we have going on is this energy right here. Okay. It's from Uranus at 27 degrees retrograding in Taurus to Pluto at 29 degrees retrograding in Capricorn, and the sun in Virgo, which this grand trine is going to be tightening over the next several days. We're going to feel it really strong between now and like the 21st or 22nd of September before it starts to dissipate and the sun moves into Libra as we welcome in Libra season. At the top of this trine, this three-way grand trine, is Neptune at 28 degrees retrograding in Pisces. So they're having this conversation. Now, Neptune and the sun are opposed, right? We just talked about that, where the ego is trying to control things that your spiritual self or your higher self is trying to tell you need to escape from the detriment of control, right? You need to escape from the detriment of control and choose better for yourself, okay? Neptune being in sextile to Uranus and Pluto, Pluto and Uranus are backing Neptune. They're backing Neptune. The transformation and the radical shifts required to the ego, right? Or the self-definition. Well, this is who I am. These are the labels that I've given myself in order to be important. These are the labels that I've given myself in order to project this quote unquote idea of perfection in my own head, right? The self, the idea of who we are and the labels that we hold to make us important really do need to dissolve. And we need to start taking the labels off of people. You know, they're not your mother. They're not your best friend of 20 years. They're not your son or your daughter. They're not your partner. They're not your twin flame, right? They're just a person. They're a soul going through their own healings, and they are in your mirror. If you remove the labels, would you allow yourself to be treated the way that they're treating you? Right? Would you accept their treatment of other people that you are divinely connected with in this life? Would you tolerate it if the label was stripped? If you weren't making yourself important as their quote unquote twin flame or their partner, or if you weren't making yourself important as their father or their mother or their brother or their sister or their best friend of 20 years? What if you surrendered the idea or the need or the addiction to being important, and consequently the addiction to disappointment, right? The addiction to feeling frustrated and control and trying to problem solve? What if you took the labels off? What if you radically transformed the reality and what you're doing to reflect your higher self instead of diluting it? The grand earth trine to Neptune is bringing in that epiphany on how to deeply heal the soul and transform your timeline trajectory, right? Your projected path. It could actually put you into another quote unquote timeline where you're not going to live out what feels like the sufferable life, that timeline that you could have chosen, because you're literally elevating out of it and choosing a new one, right? Now, Venus is going to be moving into square with Pluto. It's at 23 degrees Libra now. As it gets closer to 29 degrees, it's going to be in square with Pluto and Capricorn before it moves into Scorpio. It's going to be very difficult for karmic relationships. If you're in a karmic relationship dynamic, whether it's a romantic one or a familial one or a friendship one, anywhere your heart space is connected, if it is in misalignment, it's going to show. You're going to feel it. There's going to be a real sense of disharmony and a kind of need. It's going to feel like a need to take action, a need to take direction, or potentially further detrimental, an attempt to regain control at all costs, to gain admiration or respect at all costs, especially if you feel like whoever it is in your life is not respecting you or the people that you love, right? The people that you care about, that they're not being taken into consideration, or that you're not being taken into consideration the way you should be, or the way they should be, right? Very challenging aspects. The cosmos with this full moon in Pisces is really working on eclipsing out the delusion. It's working on eclipsing out the ego, the control and the manipulation that we as humans inherently fall back on in our lower vibration, because we are unwilling to be humbled. That maybe we chose a misaligned path for the sake of learning a lesson, not to live out, right? Not to suffer. Whatever it is, whether it's a business relationship or a romantic relationship, right? Family relationship, whatever the relationship is, something has to give. And to not let it give, it holds the potential to truly feel insane. Okay, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, Uranus and Neptune in misalignment would make you feel like your brain is completely scrambled, that your thoughts are scrambled, that your perception and your belief system is scrambled. It's like needing to tune into the radio and just turning it one more turn of the dial to get a clear message, and it's just coming through static, and you've got another channel overlapping, and none of what you're hearing inside your head makes sense. You could feel crazy. You could decide to act in extreme or intense ways in order to regain control over the static, with Pluto there in Capricorn. The sense of compassion for the self and others may kind of fly out the window, okay? Which can cause bigger problems. It can cause bigger problems. And the more you try and be perfect, and the more you try and do whatever you can to make it right, it's going to feel like it's backfiring. Okay, it's going to feel like it's backfiring. If you try and force a narrative or force an outcome that is not in alignment, you're going to feel crazy. You're going to have some serious self-doubt to rectify, and it's not going to be fun. So take advantage of these aspects being in positive alignment with each other, and really lean into the surrender, lean into a different perspective, lean into, the question of, well, if I were spirit, God, source, creator, my higher self, whatever you label that power as, right? That's greater than you, that loves you unconditionally. If I were that power and I needed to teach me a lesson, how would I teach it? Because you got to take self-accountability to do that. If you struggle with self-accountability, this is not going to be a pleasant eclipse for you. If you have no problem asking yourself that question, what do I need to learn? If the universe loves me unconditionally and only wants my highest self to be made manifest so that I can love my life experience, feel whole and happy and loved in life? What experience would I give me in order to heal the things that I have refused to acknowledge and take account for thus far? Right? How would the universe use experience with my mirror to shove me into transformation and alignment? What kind of epiphanies are you willing to let yourself have? What kind of revelations are you willing to let yourself have? That's the beauty of the Grand Earth Trine, leaning into that new narrative, knowing that certain partnerships are probably going to have to go because you've abandoned harmony, you've abandoned your better energy being of service to lower vibrations who are literally just using your best energy and not reciprocating it or filling you back up, right? So that's the Earth Trine. The third aspect that we're talking about here is Mars. Mars is at 7 degrees Cancer. It's squaring the nodes of fate and destiny. North node at 6 degrees in Aries, south node at 6 degrees in Libra. And it's opposed Ceres at 8 degrees Capricorn, which is also in square to the nodes, right? There's this kind of cross energy. It's not a grand cross because they're not all major planets. Ceres is a dwarf planet in the asteroid belt, the largest object in the asteroid belt. And it represents nurturance and rebellion, standing up for what we want. But it's the colder facet of Ceres when it's in Capricorn. If you think about the mythos, right? Ceres is Demeter, and Demeter is Persephone's mother, right? And Persephone was kidnapped and taken to the underworld as a prisoner to Hades, who, she refused to marry. She wanted to go home, and she ended up eating the pomegranate seeds, right? If you guys know the myth. Ceres in Capricorn is kind of like the moment where she decided to go ice cold and freeze everything, because Demeter rules the seasons, and she sent everything into winter. Life stopped. Trees stopped. Flowers stopped. Everything was ice and snow. Like, growth stopped. And Mars in Cancer, in opposition to that energy, like, Mars is not its happiest in Cancer. Cancer is squared to its home sign of Aries. But Mars was also the original ruler of Scorpio, right before Pluto's discovery. Scorpio co-ruled with Aries, Mars. So it's in trine, right? Cancer and Scorpio are in trine. And so it's kind of giving you an interesting, we'll say, curved blade, a little bit of an edge against people from past lives that have competed against you, right? Past life enemies, for lack of a better word. Wherever your emotions are, what your feelings are, you're torn, right? You're torn between fate and destiny. Do I lean into the power of myself with the North Node and give the light attributes of Mars back to the North Node in Aries? Or do I feed it to Libra, right? The South Node in Libra. Mars in Cancer. Feelings get triggered with people who are competing for your light, who are competing for your vitality, who are competing for your place. When we acknowledge that we're not where we want to be and we're at this crossroads against people in our reality who are meant to nurture, who are meant to help create growth and are essentially freezing growth. If you have emotional attachments to people that are refusing to grow, yeah, you're going to feel torn. You're going to feel like you're at a crossroads. What do I do? Do I choose myself and what feels good and let this person go? Or do I continue to lean into the relationship dynamic, even though they are ice cold and nothing is growing? The relationship is not growing. We as individuals are not growing. Our life is not thriving, right? In this specific instance, with the North Node in Aries, it benefits people to choose themselves. Because these people that are ice cold or being really stubborn and putting their foot down and not growing, refusing to change, they're shitting all over you, right? The South Node is the dragon's tail. It shits. The South Node shits all over everything in misalignment. It feels shitty. If it is in misalignment, the South Node will make it feel shitty. It's a magic eraser for misalignment. Mars. It feels like emotional warfare. People may be playing on your emotions. They may be withholding their own emotions as a weapon. They might not be expressing love. They might not be taking loving actions. They might be withholding loving actions and words as a form of punishment and control. This is the kind of influence that this cross energy has. If you cannot love someone and grow with someone and work through things and make it better, do you really love them? No. No. You're refusing to grow. You're being stubborn. You're being resistant. And there's some form of selfish behavior in there, right? You can't grow. You don't want to grow. You don't want to shift and be better. You don't want to create a better, thriving life with your partner. You don't love them. You are most definitely using them for something. Because why else would you have them around if you didn't love them? You're gaining something from them being in your life. And this is the reality, right, that people are facing. This is the crossroads. Do I stick around in relationships that are not growing just because I have an emotional attachment? Or do I walk because being with them feels shitty and it's not growing? Do I allow myself to rise and be open to something greater, right? Do I move into the destined self that is North Node in Aries? There's also a square to Lilith and Libra going on. Lilith is retrograding right now at 3 degrees Libra and square to Mars. Now, given she's retrograding away from Mars, but she pings and flips and starts to move direct rather quickly, she's going to move into the square again. This is where people are digesting the reality that they've abandoned themselves, that they've abandoned their own inner harmony and chose chaos. They chose chaos. Whatever was previously stable or could have had the potential to be stable was abandoned. And it's because, well, karma, you can call it, some people call it karma, but it's the mirror of things. What did you not learn previously about yourself? Were you in relationship dynamics where you were using someone and cold, or using emotional warfare, withholding love, withholding affection, withholding compassion, withholding nurturance, right? All of these things because you were using them for something. Where you abandoned harmony, when it was being presented to you. A partner who wanted to grow, right? A partner who wanted to create a thriving life. And you refused. There's a reason why we go through these experiences, okay? Some people are learning this. The vast majority of people are learning this, especially if you have placements close to 3 degrees Libra, 6 degrees Libra. If you have Aries placements, Cancer placements, especially if they're detriments, right? Like Chiron, like Saturn, like Lilith. Challenges to benefics, right? That manifest as shit. Manifest as shit. It's difficult. It's fucking difficult. Where did you sacrifice harmony? That the mirror is reflecting certain things to you now to teach you, right? Lilith and its light is liberation. You can effectively liberate yourself from the shadow of self-abandonment, quitting on yourself, right? Quitting on your own growth, quitting on other people because they wouldn't tolerate the lack of growth that you were in. You can liberate yourself from this by seeing the mirror and choosing different, choosing harmony instead of sabotaging it, right? Choosing to elevate and grow and accept better into your life, beauty, gratitude, stability, right? Harmony. You can heal this. You can rise to the challenge. I mean, that's really what squares are. They're alignments that ask you simply to rise to the challenge of growth. It's a growth edge. Squares are a growth edge. People have, at this choice point, the ability to be better and live better and let the old self go, right? To let the old versions of self that swing back and forth like a pendulum from one extreme to the next go. You don't have to learn these ping pong mirror lessons over and over and over again. You can most definitely grow and rise to the challenge. So are they uncomfortable? Squares? Yeah. Is there a reason why they're uncomfortable? Yeah. It's called divine discomfort. It's called divine discomfort to give you perspective, to show you there's two sides to the same coin. It's you, right? The fourth aspect that we have going on here, the fourth and final aspect, is the moon at 25 degrees Pisces, quincunx Venus at 23 degrees Libra. Now, quincunxes are wild cards, and they can be wildly in your favor or wildly uncomfortable, right? They're wild card energies. With the moon and Venus and Pisces and Libra, the key, right, out of karma, these wild cards are keys. You can literally jump off of one karmic path and into alignment. It's like an instantaneous kind of flash that can change things, right? Radical change. The light side of the quincunx, if you wanted to get out of karma, it would be listening to your intuition. It would be listening to your soul. It would be aligning yourself with harmonious partners that have proven that they are already financially stable, that they are already in a union space within the self, committed to their own betterment, committed to growth, and being on par with that energy with them, right? To move side by side with them down the path instead of in a different direction from them, right? That you would actually hop, jump, skip back onto a path or into a new path in general with someone who is in alignment with growth, where the soul is satisfied, where the soul is grateful, where the soul looks around and literally breathes in the beauty of the experience, feeling blessed in the luxury of life that we would never want, that we would truly never even want to die, right? That life is so beautiful and we are so grateful for it that we wish we could live forever. That vibe is there. That vibe is there. You could listen to your intuition. You could listen to your soul and what your soul wants and legit go after it by bringing your best self into a reality with someone else's best self, that you would meet each other there. This is a great opportunity to heal mother wounds, a great opportunity to find gratitude for your mother with the moon, right? Especially if you know you got mommy issues. To really find gratitude for who your mother was. Because if they weren't that way, you wouldn't necessarily be here where you are. Because your mother was who they were, you attracted certain people into your life, and the people that you attracted into your life taught you certain lessons that led to you becoming your highest self. So even if your mother was a horrible person for all of or part of your life, you could absolutely find gratitude for your mother and forgive her for having to play the role that she had to play in order for you to heal things that you've probably been healing for lifetimes, right? Pisces goes real deep into past lives. So this has been a reoccurring thing that you could finally come out of and heal out of and elevate through in this life. The downside to the quincunx, right? If you were to take the low vibratory road, what would that look like? Okay. That would look like heavy escapism, overspending on escapism, whatever the escapism is, or multiple, right, avenues of escapism. Overspending on shopping or online stuff, overspending on things and people that don't value you, overspending on substances, overspending on video games, right? Things that we use to escape. It could look like indecisive or wishy-washy partners that don't have any kind of stability, right? There's no actual stability with them. It could look like it could look like relationships based on physical attraction and not depth of soul. It could be spiritual adversaries, people that literally came into this life just to play on your mother wounds, getting the upper hand and benefiting from you because you're not healing, that you would be in a detrimental position that continues to get worse. It could look like big financial losses, including having someone take everything on their way out, right? And being left with nothing. The wildly unfortunate low alignment of the quincunx. Would be, it would result in something that makes you wish you never met someone. It would result in feeling deep shame, deep shame. Being embarrassed, right? Publicly embarrassed by people in your life. Because not only did you choose wrong, you probably doubled down and tripled down and ignored all of the red flags and rode it to the bitter, quite literally the bitter and unfortunate, impoverished end. So the quincunx, you don't really want to ignore that. I think that especially because Venus is moving into Pluto, into square with Pluto, that a lot of people can potentially intuit or feel the end coming before it happens. There may be, with the different challenges inside this chart, the scramble to control it, right? The frantic energy to try and avoid the inevitable ending, to try and ignore it or pretend that it's not real when it might literally be happening right under your nose. Right? The denial might be real. But it can be sensed in advance. So anybody going through a potential ending, a potential partnership ending, whether, like I said, it's romantic, business, friendship, family, whatever the connection is, people are going to feel it before it actually happens. So if you're sitting here and I'm like, well, I really don't feel like any of my relationships are in jeopardy. I feel really good with where I'm at and the people that I'm aligned with, and I trust myself and, you know, all that. Well, then you're in alignment. You know what I mean? Then you're in alignment. But if you have a feeling, if you're sitting here and you have a feeling that someone is about to exit and that you could be taking losses when they leave, that whatever you invested is not going to be returned, you're not wrong, you know, and it's unfortunate, but you're not wrong. If you feel like someone's on their way out and you might be taking losses and you feel like you've got to scramble to try and maintain or try and, you know, restabilize it or build it back up, the reality is it is on its way out. And it's not going to feel great because you've probably been ignoring red flags for a very long time and have been in misalignment for a very long time, right? Refusing to grow, you know, the darker sides of the mirrors going on. So prayers to each and every one of you. You will make it through it. You will make it through it. You know, life, the universe, it does what it does because it loves you and wants to help you. You know, people who try and teach or discipline through tough love, when really it's just mean. There's a difference between tough love and drawing healthy boundaries and being mean. And I think you've been accepting the quote unquote tough love that is genuinely mean from someone else. And that's who's leaving. You know, the person, the adversary who is cold and not growing. At some point, the growth needs to take place. And so spirit, the universe, might be pulling them in a different direction because it has to push you to grow. If they didn't pull this person away, you would have continued to suffer and punish yourself with them. So spirit's kind of ripping off the Band-Aid and making you face the reality that you've got wounds and you need stitches. You need spiritual stitches. You need to close up that wound. You cannot just put a Band-Aid over it and pretend it's not bleeding. You know, pretend you're not wounded and just ignore it. Ignore the fact that it hurts. You have to face the fact that you need healing, right? Some people are just, this is where they are. This is where they are. So I hope that this cosmic currency really gives you some insight, not just to where you are in your own alignment, because, you know, if you're aligned, you're aligned, and you can look forward to some awesome shit. Because to be fair, if you're in alignment with that grand earth trine and you are going through the transformations, you are going through the radical shifts, you are tuned into your intuition and your higher self, and you are choosing an alignment and letting yourself do as you're guided and being in that flow and accepting that what resists progress with you is not in alignment with your progress. And just letting it go, right? Being in that state of Neptunian surrender to your higher self and allowing the transformations to take place, there are some great physical 3D world manifestations, blessings that are going to be coming from that. Right? It might take a little while to manifest because the 3D always takes a little bit longer than everything else, right? It catches up with the vibration. But it's going to come in, and it's going to come in big. Like Pluto is a powerhouse. It's a reserve of spiritual energy. You know, when we talk about Neptune and feeling that closeness to the divine, feeling that gratitude, the revelation, right, that comes along with Uranus, that ability to radically shift because you clicked into an understanding, right? This conversation in the mirror that the divine is having with you all the time. It's going to unfold in material ways, real world ways that are highly, highly beneficial, especially in the houses that those signs rule for your specific birth chart. You know, whatever houses are ruled by the earth signs in your chart, or at least the final degrees of the earth signs, right? If you go Placidus instead of whole sign. Big time manifestations, powerful manifestations, and a whole lot of gratitude for not just your higher self, but for yourself, because you tuned into it, right? Gratitude for the self and the choices that you made, being really glad you made the choices that you made, because it really could have been a lot worse. It really could have been painful. And yet you chose to align, you chose to see, you chose to take self-accountability, you chose harmony, and it's going to pay out. It's going to pay out in big ways. And you're going to be really glad that you chose not to be at war with yourself, to not compete with these past life spiritual adversaries that come in for whatever reason, you know, whatever reason they have for coming into your life this life. I think the blessings when you choose to heal the self, when you choose an alignment with the self and take the labels away and see people for who they are and how you're being treated at face value, letting go of the emotional attachments or the physical attractions that kept you intimately involved with people that aren't worth their weight. They're not worth their weight. Literally, the karmic spiritual burden of them being in your life, it's not worth it. Letting them go opens huge doors. It can literally skyrocket you into another timeline. And you don't have to live out this life suffering like you thought. You have a choice. You have a choice. Align your free will with divine will and see what happens. You'll thank me later. All right. With that said, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to set up for the secret codename moon event, and I will see you again soon. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely drop a thumbs up and like the video if it resonated for you, and if you appreciated the time I took to be here and do this for you. It helps me in the channel, and I appreciate every single one of you that do that. Thank you all very much. Much love and blessings to you, and I will see you in a bit. Take care, guys.